Hello, Terry here, Hot Wrench Fabrication, back in the shop with a SCU, Sandcar Unlimited. New to the customer, took it out to Glamis last weekend, or Veterans Weekend, and had a couple little problems. Namely, car actually caught on fire. They had the vent tube for the gas came out and basically, I guess it ran right out here, right next to the headers and caught on fire. But luckily they put it out right away. So I need to check this thing out. You can see a little bit of residue from the fire extinguisher. But I need to check and see with any damage and just kind of give it a look-ski, see what I see. Pretty neat car. Got a supercharger on an LS7. Just does wheelies in pretty much any gear he wants. Interior is pretty bougie. Nice leather interior, or suede, or whatever it is. It's nice. Not too sure if I'm crazy about the gray. Seems like it would get kind of dirty, but I reckon looks rich. And it's kind of neat. It has a little vents right here. Actually directs some of the air into the passenger seat right there, so that's kind of cool. Nice floor mats. Open floor in the bottom so you can kind of see through-ish. Just a nice, super clean car. So we'll go over it, do my investigation, do my inspection on it. See if there's any loose bolts or wires that are burning up or whatever. But all in all, pretty BA. This thing's nice. So let's lift it up and see what we see. All in all, it actually turned out pretty good. Got a little residue from the fire extinguisher. The hoses that I thought were cooked really aren't that bad. There's a couple little conduits of the wires up there that I'll have to look at the wires and check those out, but all in all, it looks pretty good. Kind of normal little seepage here and there. I found one nut that was loose right there. Pretty sure that's not supposed to do that, but no big deal. It's just a sway bar. All the other bolts actually look pretty good. I'm going to pull these boots off. Kind of weird that it has stub axles instead of midboards. It's kind of weird on a high-end car like this, but I mean, it works. So let's pull these boots off and double check the bolts and check the grease on there. One thing that's really cool I've seen is they have a washer that they bent and then just barely tack welded on there so they can put zip ties through there. That's pretty sick. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's pretty neat. But all in all, everything looks pretty good. Check the front end, it's pretty tight. Basically has the spec wiring on there. All the wiring is all wrapped up, but it's all external. So it's got that ray cam on there. So the entire wiring harness is external to the frame, which is pretty cool, but I don't know, just kind of blob in there right there. Not super clean the way it's all mounted, but I'm okay with that. Got little lights in the footsteps there. Front end is all nice and tight. Got just a teeny bit of play on this rack, but that is normal. I'm not going to replace that. And everything else looks pretty good. I put those washers on there with the zip locks all over the place, or zip ties. Pretty sick. But yeah, all in all, I think she's good. All these bolts are tight. Heims are tight. Brakes are tight. She's tight and right. So I think all I need to do is kind of clean this mess up over here and then get up there and see what kind of wiring was damaged. But it doesn't look bad at all. I think it'll be fine. What is this? A melted zip tie just hanging there. It's just chilling. Oh yeah, she got a little toasty up there. But it'll be okay. We'll fix her up. All right, so this is the damage done. Basically one wire. Dang it. Can't get my light in there. Come on. Oh, hold please. Had it on my head and I took it off because I thought it'd be a shadow. Anyhow, so that wire right there, she got a little toasty. And got some metal showing right there. Kind of flattened out, so that's literally the only one. These hoses right here, just barely, the outside edge just barely got crispy. It's still intact. It's not worth replacing. This is just a vent. And then this other hose is for something. Yeah, power steering. But it's not bad at all. So it just got basically the plastic, cheap old crappy plastic that was on there. It's really the only thing it did damage to. The rest of the wires are in good shape. But you see right there, even a nice spec wiring job like this, and I don't know who originally did it. I mean, it's, you know, somebody could have changed things. So basically the little spall fans right here is what this plug goes to. Right there. And half of the wire is hanging out. See that little tail on there? Like, so fans typically need all the juice, draw a lot of amps. And half of it's not even going through there. It's not making contact. So now that wire's half the size that it's supposed to be. That's not good. And then this one actually about the same. It's got several threads that didn't even make it. So you got to get the right size butt connectors that can fit all of your wires. And this looks like a decent size. They just didn't get them put in there. So I'm going to have to redo that. And then here we go again with like 20 miles too long wiring. It's kind of hard to see, but it's loop right here. I can cut all that back and take at least a foot out of there. So you get something like, it's called a volt drop. And the volt drops are the juice that actually gets taken up by the conductor. So not only does your fan use the voltage, but the conductors also do, just a little bit. The longer the wire, the more volt drop you're going to get from that wire. That's why it's critical to have the right sizing for the length of wire. If you have a 10-foot wire, it's going to have to be a little bit thicker than a 2-foot wire. So losing just a little bit of voltage through a wire like that is just, it's ridiculous. You know, you get free voltage just by chopping that up. So I'm going to cut that off. I bet you it's longer than a foot. I'm going to cut all that off and put the right size. Well, actually, it's the right size. I'm just going to shorten it up quite a bit and kind of clean that up, and then clean these two up and fix this one wire, and then just kind of clean the rest of this because I think everything else is in pretty good shape. And then over here, the what you call it, catch can sitting right there, and it did have some blow by. You can see it's coming out, and that's going to be pretty typical with a blown car if you're running it hard. And it was kind of hot out there, but there's no drain on the bottom of that, so you would have to get underneath there with a wrench or a socket and drain that every time, which is stupid. Oops. So I'm gonna put a little drain on there for him, so you can just literally just hit the, oh my gosh, my light's freaking out. You just hit a ball valve. It's gonna be hidden, you can't see it anyway, you can drain it real quick. So who knows how much is in there. The bottom of that hose fitting that's probably this far from the bottom of the edge. I mean, that whole bottom of that thing could be full of oil. So that's silly. And then I'm going to address this ridiculously large vent, like 1 or 1.5 inch vent that necks down to a 7/8. So I'm going to put I'm going to take that plate off and see if I can weld probably a -8 in there and put the right size vent. That thing is gigantic. We'll get her fixed up for him. So what I did was I welded on a -10 AN fitting. So this hose is absolutely gigantic. Not sure why it's so big. It's a lot of venting, but nice AN10 fitting on there with stainless steel hose. And then just got to get some fittings. Probably I'll go with the black one, but something to that effect. Kind of go up at a little bit of an angle and then come down, and I will follow one of the bars down somewhere. Maybe down in this area, or it was connected way over to this bar, but it doesn't really matter as long as it is out of the way. So just put that plate back onto that big old hole right there, and it'll be done. And that'll be fixed. All right, so I mentioned this vehicle that I'm working on right now about a volt drop. So there's a couple of principles that you have to understand when dealing with electrical circuits. So obviously battery goes to ground, power goes through a fuse, through a switch, through a light bulb, and then back to ground. So the flow of electricity through there has to complete a path to ground. If you have a short to ground, and that's the most common bad problem with the circuit, you have a short to ground, you have some issues. That means that at some point in time, this wire right here got shorted to ground. So a piece of wire is exposed, it touched the ground, to the frame or something like that. The electricity flows through this wire and directly to ground, does not go through the bulb. The bulb consumes that voltage. So if the bulb does not consume the voltage, the wire is going to consume the voltage. With a direct short to ground, all of that wire is now the load of the circuit, and it's just going to pop the fuse. Hopefully, if it doesn't have a fuse, it's going to burn the circuit. So short to grounds are bad. So a couple of terminologies, and we have our Ohm's law here. So amps over resistance, right? Volts over amps times resistance. So what is voltage? Voltage is basically the pressure that's inside your battery. So the pressure is 12 volts throughout the circuit. The amps is the flow of electrons through the circuit. And then the resistance is how much resistance the bulb or the circuit itself has. So I like to think about it as a garden hose. That's the easiest way for me to kind of explain things. When you have your faucet, before you turn the faucet on, before that is pressure. That's your voltage, how much water pressure you have available. When you turn the faucet on, the water starts to flow through the garden hose. That's your amps. And then the garden hose itself, the size of it, is your resistance. And then obviously the sprinkler is going to be some resistance also. So if you have no resistance on there, it's going to flow super easy, right? You put your finger over the end of it, it causes a resistance. Now you have a little bit harder path for the water to go through, but it also speeds it up because you're increasing that amperage. So it's the exact same thing on electrical circuit. The resistance is usually going to be the motor, the bulb, or whatever you're running that voltage to. Now, the biggest problem is having wires that aren't big enough for the amount of amperage that you need to run. So like a fan on a dune buggy, those are pretty high draw. They could be 25, 30 amps, especially on startup, and then they'll go down a little bit as they run. Also, as they heat up, the resistance goes up. So if you get online, you could see all of the charts for size of wire. The longer the wire is, the bigger it needs to be because it's creating some resistance in there. So the wire is a conductor. It is going to take some of that voltage. The ground is also going to take some of that voltage, and then of course your load should take the brunt of it. So when we talk about a volt drop, what we're going to do is we're going to take our meter and hook it up to voltage DC, put one probe on the ground, and you could put that right there, and then you put your other probe on the power and you drop it down to here. So you're on the same wire, but you are measuring from this point right here to this point right here. How much voltage does that wire consume? It should be a very low number. So if we have like 0.2 volts, that's 0.2 volts less than what the bulb is going to be able to use. So you do the same thing over here on the ground side. Put your meter on this point and on the ground, and you can get another 0.2. So now we have almost half a volt of voltage being consumed in the conductor. So now instead of having 12 volts, we have 11.6 volts to light up our bulb. So high resistance, that's going to consume voltage. So the biggest, hugest, nastiest problem we see is when you have eyelets. Hold on a sec. Coming back. So if you have a little electrical eyelet like that, which everybody uses, clip those on the end of the wire, and then you screw that with the sheet metal screw right to your frame. You don't take any of the powder coat or paint off there. You just stick it right to it. Now all you have is the threads inside the screw making contact with ground, and then whatever's on that one side, because the other side's not grounded. In reality, that's probably going to work for most of the situations, especially like a LED light, tail light, stuff like that that doesn't have much voltage on there. But if you don't get a good contact on there, that's going to increase the volt drop, which decreases the amount of voltage that your component can work or to run. So it's really important to have a super good ground. We put dedicated grounds on all of ours. Instead of going right to the frame with an eyelet like this, we'll actually pair it up with the other wire and go all the way back to a dedicated bus bar for the ground, a dedicated bus bar for the power side. This is obviously just a very basic kind of information on this. Ohm's law, which is volts over amps times resistance. If you plug some numbers in there, as that resistance changes, it drastically changes the amps and the voltage. I mean drastically. So if you have high resistance, like on a corrosion on your battery post, that green white scaly stuff, that powder that gets on there, that corrosion gets in between the post and the terminal that goes on there, and that creates high resistance between the power wire. That could obviously wreak havoc on the whole entire system, especially if you're starting, because your starting amperage, the wires on those are huge and the starter is huge, so it needs as much juice as it can possibly get. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but a volt drop is measuring the start to finish of the wire, and the circuit has to be on. Forgot to say that. So you have to kick your switch on when you're doing that. You have to have a complete circuit for it to flow through there so you can actually see what the voltage is. So obviously your load should take most of it. In this case, 0.2 minus 0.2, if this is a 12 volt system, this would be 11.6 volts. Some computers won't even run that high. They need to be 11.8, I think, minimum, 12 minimum, just for them to work. So if you have high resistance in that circuit and you're not getting a full, 12 volts to it, that could cause problems with the computer. So this wire over here, this wire right here that I talked about before, how half of those wires are not even going into the butt connector here. And this one's kind of the same thing. On the orange wire, half of those wires are actually cut. They're not even making contact. In fact, this thing is ready to break off. So you reduce the size of that wire, and you've reduced how much voltage or amperage can actually go through that wire. So it's kind of scary because that stuff will create heat, start melting wires, and causing components not to work. So there you go. Quick little summary. We could talk about this kind of stuff for hours. It gets kind of boring, especially if you don't understand it a whole lot. I would kind of lose you guys, but I just wanted to give you kind of a quick scenario on some of the basics of voltage and how critical it is to have a really good contacts, good size wires, good type of wires. Make sure you're not buying some junk, and everything has to be sized out. The internet is great for letting you know what the size wire should be. So longer the wire, if you have like a battery cable, you have batteries in the front of the car, and then obviously the starter's way in the back. You need a really big cable to be able to handle the voltage to go all the way back. If you have a battery that's right next to the starter that's in the back, it doesn't have to be as big or as long. So kind of cool. So thanks for watching this part, and we'll get back to fixing this car. A little bit better. Got the wires all done up and put heat shrink, and then I wrapped it with some heat resistance tape also. I'm trying to clean up some of this residue from his fire extinguisher. But that's all done, and then the vent is done. Nice -10, and she goes all the way down. Sticks out right there. Put a little bit of heat shrink on the end of it. Have a nice little look, and it'll keep it from fraying. So now the gas out the ground onto the sand instead of onto his headers. So this is what caught on fire, obviously. Went up and got really super lucky. Put it out right away, but it didn't really burn much. And then the air cleaner, only thing that got that was just the cover. I don't like these K&N styles, so I'm putting on a regular cloth style from OTR. Super nice filter. So I'm going to put that on, and then I think I'm going to slap a little powder coat on this. This just kind of looks unfinished, obviously, because it is. So I'll slap a little powder coat on that. I think it'll look nice, gloss black. Kind of match the blower and stuff, and then I'm going to do this elbow also. We put heat shrink on the threads, which I don't know, I guess that's kind of a cool look until you have to get it off, but I suppose it's not that difficult to put heat shrink back on it. But we'll get that off and get some powder coat on there, and got to change the oil still, and a couple little odds and ends, but coming along. Okay, so I'm working on the catch can right up in there. So these didn't have a vent on there or any way to to drain it. And as you can see, the bottom, I don't know if you can see, basically right there is the bottom fitting. So that's 2 inches, actually a little bit more than 2 inches to below this, or above it. The little hole in the bottom is about 2.5 inches below that hole right, or the hose. So that whole thing can fill up full of oil or water or whatever. You do get some water in there from condensation. It builds up heat. So all I did was went to the old Ace Hardware and grabbed a ball valve. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Grab me a little ball valve, and then I had a fitting. Luckily, just happened to have a fitting with an 1/8 inch hole in it. And then that's gonna go in there. Something like that. Probably have to bend that just a tiny bit, but that'll be my drain. So you just flip that, leaks out, close it back up, and you're done. So, really simple fix for a really simple problem. I don't know why they don't put drains on these from the brand new. I mean, you have to get that fluid out somehow. So after each day or after each weekend, you just flip that, drain it real quick, and then you're good to go. So that's my fix for it. I'll show you when I'm done. One installed ball valve. Pretty nice. So, piece of cake with Ace Hardware. Got a couple of fittings. Flip that up. She's leaking out. Flip her back down. Good to go. So that was it. That was a pretty easy fix. So I think I'm almost done with this actually. Put the oil in it. I just checked the CVs. I got grease in them. There's some right there. And got the oil changed. Got to put some oil in it. But found a little bit longer filter. It's kind of cool. And got that vent buttoned up down there. Wiring is done. So, oh, the air cleaner. Yep, got to go grab that. Okay, so that looks way better. Instead of having just that raw aluminum, matches all the black on there. And then I put that different air cleaner in there, and then still ran the same bracket that he had before. That keeps it all in line. So that ain't going anywhere. So basically, all I have to do now is just a couple more little cleanup doodads. Get the rest of this, the fire extinguisher dust off of it. But I think she's done. Puts covers back on. I had to put my dirt tires on here because he had his paddles. It wouldn't fit between my hoist. We go 36s on there. But yeah, almost finished. This car is sick. Very nice car. So anywho, yeah, I think I'm pretty much done. Get this thing wrapped up, give it back to the customer. Well, that's a wrap. I'm done. Everything's put back together. Pretty well cleaned up. Still some little bit of spots, but all in all, pretty good. Spent a little bit of time on it. But yeah, got the wiring down there done, powder coated, new filter, put the petcock in the overflow, the oil catch can, and just kind of tightened up a few little things here and there, but all in all, she's pretty good. So we'll be coming and picking it up, and I think think he's planning on going to the dunes next weekend or something like that. So should be good to go. But as always, thanks for joining in. Hopefully you learned a couple things on the electrical. I'll try and make some more. That was a little weak. It was a little add-on thing. I was just kind of thinking about the volt drops. A lot of people don't know about that. So try to explain to you a little bit about that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. But I'll be making some more, and I got another big project coming in on Monday. So a whole bunch of work on that. It's going to be several series. So I think you guys will like it. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next one.